I knew that this thing behind me was actually pretty advanced, but we just were able to 3D print something that is living. And I'm not joking, when I found out about this, I thought that it was fiction. But it isn't. We were able to figure out a way with science and medicine to 3D print something that is living, and we can import it into a human being for it to use. How is this possible? And so, because I got again like too excited about this and I couldn't believe it, I went into it to find out if it actually was true and how were we able to do it. And they used a very special method that I would have never actually thought about. And it's mind-boggling to me that we were able to do this. And at the end, I'm gonna try to like even explain to you how far we can actually take this and what methods they used to achieve this. And even though it's midnight, I just cannot keep this information just to myself because it got me super excited and it's crazy. So I did a bit of research. Of course, it's probably not going to be perfect. So if you have anything to add on top of my explanation, you can drop it in the comments. I'm going to try to go over it simply, and I'm going to compare it all to the 3D printer that I have behind me so that you can probably even understand it better. Just as I did, I compared it for myself, understood it better, so hopefully you can as well. So first of all, what is the model that it uses? Because with these things, we use STL files or whatever 3D object files we have, right? Object, 3MF, or all of these things that we use for the 3D printing. But they don't use these things. What they use is scans of the real patient that they are going to be importing this part into afterwards. So either if it's MRI scan or a CT scan, they use that, they digitalize it, and they make 3D scans out of that, and they transport it into a format that then can be formed for a machine to use. But the biggest mystery that I was trying to figure out is how are they able to have the filament, right? The filament for that. How would they form that? And they actually kind of don't. They first make something completely different. And what they do is they print with liquid. And it's not like too liquidy, it's a bit of a glue. And what I found out is that they use something called bioink, and the bioink is made from hydrogels and collagen, which creates this gluey stuff. And then into this like glue stuff, they start importing the cells that then will be living. But if they imported just the cells in there, it actually wouldn't work. So what they have to do is they have to add a special kind of proteins and make the glue have certain factors that will tell the cells to then multiply. Because then when they like use this glue, they need the cells to start multiplying as they are in our body every day. And that's just amazing. So instead of a normal spool of filament like this, they use liquid. And how do they import it in there? Well, with this 3D printer, we have nozzles, right? But in medical world, as you might have already noticed, they use syringes. And that's exactly what they are doing even over here. They use syringes to import this glue into the syringe. And because a syringe is able to have a diameter of nearly nanometers or whatever small size they are able to get, they are actually able to 3D print this gluey stuff with the cells extremely precisely, and that's how they are able to replicate these super complex things like tendons or ligaments in our body in their 3D printing with the bioink or the gluey stuff that I explained before. But what about the glue getting solidified? And it's actually quite interesting, and I understood this from my sister because I was once with her in the nail salon, and when she actually got her nails done, she would put the nails into a UV lighter, and it solidified the liquid that was like put it on her nails. And that's exactly what they use as well, because in the glue they import another, let's say, aspect of the glue or composition that is able to solidify it under UV light. And even resin printing uses this. For example, this is FDM printing, which places layers and then cools them down. But resin printing uses UV light to solidify the liquid that they have. And even girls use this in nail salons, so that's amazing. So even though I was very mad that I had to sit in that hair salon for an hour, now I'm glad because now I understand it a lot better. And I can even compare it to real life, which is always amazing for explanations. Okay, so now we know what files they use, what nozzle they use, what filament they use, and how do they even solidify it. But the problem is that at that time, the cells still aren't working as they should. Because what they then need to do is they need to take this solidified gluey stuff that they created and they need to put it into an incubator. And as I have told before or said, they put that kind of special protein in there that tells the cells to multiply, right? And this is exactly what this step is for, because they put it into this special environment where the cells can actually start multiplying and they can start creating the ligaments or the necessary let's say space that can then be actually imported into a working human body to work with the body itself, because the human body has its systems, and if you just put like a 3D printed part or like biochemically printed part, I think it's called bioprinting, bioprinted part into the body won't accept it so easily. So they need to put it into this incubator and leave it there for a few months for the system to be built for that specific human. So there's like a like extra step that the 3D printers we have right now don't need. Or the resin printers, of course, they have certain extra processes that then needs to be done after you actually solidify the part. So resin printers are a bit more closer to this process, but still that isn't like the same, because over here you're literally creating live parts. So that's the next step that's additional to 3D printing. But there's still one more aspect that's the most fascinating about this, and that's the space they actually created it. But when they tried to print with the glue or the bioink on Earth, they realized that it wasn't holding in the formation that they needed it to, and because it was still liquid, it would just get into places that they didn't want, and they weren't able to control it as much as they would like to. So what they did is they actually went into space to battle gravity. Like, how crazy is that? That we need to go into space to actually be able to bioprint. So, no, this wasn't printed on Earth. They were able to print some very simple models on Earth of tendons and ligaments, but the more complex ones that are actually able to be imported into a human being need to be printed in the space to battle gravity. In this present moment, I feel like I'm living in the future. It feels amazing. And even though we know so little about this, and it's completely new, yet we were able to already start using this in the medical world. And of course, it's extremely expensive right now. But with the evolution of space and rockets in the recent years, I believe that this will actually become a lot more accessible and we will be able to print even more things. They are right now solving a lot of problems because of how complex the body is, and printing organs like real liver, heart, or things like that is extremely complicated, of course, because the human body is just a bit too complex for us right now to even process and to take a reasonable scan of it. The MRI scans and CT scans, of course, are precise, but they aren't precise enough for a heart to be 3D printed. So I hope I was able to somehow summarize how this all happens, and I was able to probably even spike your own curiosity. Innovitek, until next time.